Mr. Pond
Here we go.
Tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Must be Wednesday. Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live from my truck. Somewhere in, let's see, I think I'm in Grimes County, Texas right now. So glad to see you. Check in. Let's talk about ponds and stuff tonight. I've got several things I want to visit about. I want to talk to you about some of the tools you can use and some things that are coming up. I've got some pretty cool stuff coming up that you're going to want to know about. So let's sit back, relax, hang out, have a little bit of fun, bring your questions. I'm all in the mood to be answering questions. Of course, when I'm in my truck, I can't be looking at my laptop because I don't have Wi-Fi, of all things. I see Kim Moore, James McCoy, John Elmer from Indiana. Good to see John. Good to see you. Kim Moore's on there twice. She must have gone on, came off, came back on. Jeffrey Smith. We got 18 people looking. Now, I don't know who all is looking unless this gadget tells me, which sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. So, hey, everybody that's watched this show, y'all know how to play the game. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like. Hello, Vito. Hello, Wyatt. Click like, share this to your timeline, and you are eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. There it is right there. I got it turned around this week. And a Pond Boss mug that I don't have in my truck for some reason. That knows how to, say it, Vito, I know you know, knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. No, it's really funny. I tell you what's really funny is I know Vito, and he said that with me. I know he did. You know, if one of his kids is probably cooking supper because he's raising some chefs there in Whitesburg, Texas. Hey, Frank James, John Funk, J.P. Clayton, Brian Lee Baker, Travis Smith, Lowell Bennett, Jim Liner, stay cool. Hey, man, I'm always cool. I'm in my truck. Richard Parrish, Jeremy Holland, Mike Cottrell, Eric Copeland. We got a good group of folks checking in tonight. Good to see everybody. So, what I thought I'd talk about tonight for a little bit, plus your questions. So I'm counting on you guys to bring some good questions like you always do. I want to talk about some of the tools of the trade. Now, before I do that, I want to tell you this. I got something really cool coming up. I've been talking to John Barrett, who lives in Aledo, which is outside of Fort Worth, Texas. His mom and dad have a place out in Palo Pinto County. I think it's Palo Pinto County. It's near Whit, Texas, which is really a neat rural area. They've got a really beautiful lake, a boathouse. It's a great place where they entertain friends and family often. And we're going to go live from their place on the 14th, which is 2 Wednesdays from today. So, now, not only is that cool, but John's excited about it. So's his dad, Richard. And you're going to want to meet his mother. I'm hoping she's there, which we'll find out later on. I'll tell you more about it after I confirm everything. But we're going to do some things I talk about. We're going to look at Setchi disc visibility. We're going to identify plants. We're going to, see how fertility works. And I've challenged John. I said, John, think you can catch a few fish while we're there on the air live? He didn't hesitate. Yes, we can. So we're going to take a look at some fish and show you some things to be looking at. So what we're going to do, we're going to go live, hands-on, July 14th. And there's a special twist in there, I hope, if I can work it all out and confirm things. So I'm excited about it. Please put it on your calendar. Even if you don't watch another one of these shows all year, watch that one. So I've got a little bit of iced tea. Yep. Unsweet, losing weight. So I want to talk about some of the tools. When somebody, I'll always remember, probably in the mid-'80s, there were these back-to-back newspaper articles that came out just blasting off on grass carp for Lake Conroe. Now, Lake Conroe is a real popular, heavily populated lake not too far from Houston, up north of Houston. And it was just choked with hydrilla. And hydrilla is a real invasive plant. You anglers that watch this show, you know what I'm talking about with hydrilla. Anglers love it. Pond owners hate it. Landowners hate it. People that have shoreline property on a lake, they hate it. They hate it because it grows fast, it's highly invasive, and it dominates all the native species. So biologists, guys like me, we don't like it. You know, we'd much rather have American pondweed or eelgrass or some kind of plants that are native and more healthy to that environment. Well, these articles were just blasting off on grass carp because they completely just wiped out all the hydrilla within about 2 years. All the hydrilla in Conroe was gone. Now, the consequences of that were that the fish behavior changed. You know, these fish, these largemouth bass especially, that were short and chunky and shaped like footballs, they didn't have to go very far. All they had to do was live on the edge of that hydrilla, wait for bait fish to come out, and then eat. So they were couch potatoes, and they were chunky, fat, healthy fish. And angling was easy. Catching a bass along the edge cover of hydrilla is easy. But the hard part is those guys that go catch the fish, then they go put their boat on their trailer at the ramp, and then they go home, and everybody else that is around the lake has to live with it. So what happened when that lake was denuded of all the hydrilla, the follow-up fishery study was astonishing. The fishery improved immensely because when the hydrilla was gone, the bait fish were released into the environment. Bass chowed down on them, gained a huge amount of weight, but what happened that was just making the anglers upset was that the fish behavior changed. The same thing happened in Lake Austin a few years ago, you know, where they were in the middle of a drought, overstocked with triploid grass carp. They ate the hydrilla. Now the anglers were just guides, and you know, fishermen were just really angry, pissed because they didn't have any more edge cover. But what they didn't realize is those bass didn't go anywhere. They had to change the way they lived. Now, sometimes a bass can do that, sometimes it can't. You know, and so the bass that adjusted to Lake Conroe and Lake Austin and other places where triploid grass carp have been used, they either adjusted or they deteriorated and died. And that's what it works out there. So, you know, it struck me with all the bad press that grass carp were getting, why blame a fish for doing what it does? You know, I didn't get that. All these people writing these stories, people reading the stories, they're getting mad at a fish for doing what a fish does. If they want to get mad, be mad at the people that didn't use the tools. So I look at grass carp as a tool. I look at Sechi discs as a tool. I look at electrofishing as a tool. I look at a fish hatchery as a tool. So the way I approach this is all of us out there, we all have tools that we can use to make our lakes and ponds better. And so that's the way I want you to look at it as well. Let's see here, Trey Carpenter, if someone gave you a big sack of crawfish, would you eat them or pour them in your bass pond? You know, I love Trey Carpenter. Trey is a retired Texas Parks and Wildlife Department wildlife biologist who is conscientious, a devout Christian. I love his posts on Facebook. I love the fact that he's a fishery student and he takes the same concepts that he's used in wildlife management and he uses them with his fisheries management as well. If somebody gave me a big sack of crawfish, would I eat them or pour them into my bass pond? I would make that decision based on how hungry I was compared to how hungry the bass are. And I'd probably share some with the bass. You know, because they don't cost that much. You know, 99 cents a pound up to $4 a pound, depending on when you buy them. So the thing about, since you broached the topic of crawfish, I'm going to tell you how crawfish work as a tool in your pond management toolkit. Now, let me tell you about crawfish. If you're thinking about using crawfish to enhance your fishery, what I want you to think about is this. Only use those crawfish that are native to your area. We don't want to take red swamp crawfish from the Chaffalaya Basin in Louisiana and stock them in Nebraska. That's not a good thing. They won't thrive, and if they do, they'll outcompete the native species of different colors. White crawfish, there's like 1,500 different species of crawfish. I'm guessing at that, but I know there's a bunch. You know, so crawfish are a tool. Now, the thing about stocking crawfish, the conclusions I've drawn, is you can stock those things And if you have to stock them after 3 or 4 years and they haven't taken, they're probably not. So if you're going to stock them after 3 or 4 years of doing it and they haven't established themselves, then all you're doing is giving your fish a snack. Now, if that's okay with you, that's okay with me. I'm fine with it. I've got a number of clients that will spend $5,000 to go buy crawfish just to feed their bass and give them a springtime snack before the bait fish spawn. You know, before their bluegills hatch, before the threadfin shad do what they do, before the golden shiners go out and have a whole bunch of babies. Let's see here. We got Terry Dooley. Dave Weber, will fatheads spawn on the bottom sides of smooth plastic surfaces or only on rough woody? No, they'll spawn on smooth plastic surfaces. Matter of fact, there's been a number of times. Actually, I came across some plexiglass one time, and I screwed it into some styrofoam, into a board on top of that to hold it in place, and fathead minnows spawned all over that plexiglass. And I floated it out in the water. I tethered it to the shore, and then I gave it a couple of weeks and went out there and raised it up. There were little silver dollar size patches of fathead minnow eggs everywhere, with the little knotty headed, deadgum knucklehead fathead minnow boys out there taking care of them and causing them to reproduce. So yes, it doesn't have to be rough or woody or concrete. It can be smooth. I've seen them spawn on PVC pipe. I've had several guys in the past that I had one guy in particular, a plumber, who had a whole bunch of PVC left over. So he took some 6-inch PVC that he had left over, and he cut it into 3-foot long sections, and then bundled it with strapping material like shippers use. You know, that nylon strapping. And he strapped it into bundles, and then go put those in water about 3 or 4 feet deep. Those things loaded up with fathead minnow eggs. They were all over the place. Good question. Travis says it's raining in Mississippi. Chris Ketchum, good to see Chris. yeah, Frank James is going to eat those crawfish. John Henry, checking from the pond dock. Good to see Richard Parrish. Here we go. Steve Scanlon again. Vito, John Funk. Yep, everybody. Mike McPherson put 30 tilapia in his half-acre pond last Saturday. Good, that's a good call. Barry Gann. Clark Cole, good to see Clark. Jeb Kaufman. Steven Stupa. Mark Dyer. Tony Edwards. Let's see what Travis is saying here. I'm kind of getting behind. My neighbor's grandson was fishing in my pond Monday. Came to the house, said he had pawpaw. Haven't caught a bluegill that size before. There were 9 to 10 inches. Aquamax MP's getting the job. Attaboy. That's it. Good stuff. Terry Dooley. Tom Davis. Mark Dyer. Bob, have you retired to Mexico? See that flag off to my left? Oh, man, that's the 6 Flags over Texas. No, I haven't retired to Mexico. I'm sitting in a park not far from Washington on the Brazos, near Navasota, and all those flags out there are representing the 6 Flags of Texas. 6 Flags over Texas. Good question, though. I guess I need to look at my background a little better. Tom Davis. Hey, Doug Brown. Good to see you, buddy. DeAndre Kimbrough. Good to see you guys. Doug Cusick. Let's see here. Kirk McGlamory, Steve Scallon, Tom Davis, Barry Gann, Todd Austin, John Krause. John Krause, dude, you got to come from Illinois, ride the train to come to Dallas, spend a few days. I'm so happy you were able to do that. That's so cool. Steve Snow's checking in from Graham, Texas. Steve, Debbie and I were working on our house down in Granbury, so we're going to be a lot closer to you than we were. Kirk McGlamory, is there a spawn we should be looking to match the hatch over the summer? That's a big yes. That is. You know, there's what kind of spawns? I'll tell you the kind of spawns you're going to have. First, you're going to have bluegills. Bluegills spawn, I'm going to tell you, in April. Then again, actually, I'm not sure where you are, but they'll spawn. Sometimes they'll spawn on bluebird days in January or February in the south. Then they'll spawn again mid-April. Then they'll spawn again early June. Then they'll go at it again in September. Then they'll do it again late October, early November. So you can have 3 to 5 spawns through the course of the year. So you can actually watch the bluegill go on the beds. They'll make beds with big areas is maybe as big as a pickup truck or bigger of craters. They're about as big around as a cow's hoof print. So you can be looking to match that. But here's some other things that's real important. All through the summer, you're going to have mayflies hatch. You're going to have mayflies hatch in the summer, but you're going to have dragonflies, damselflies. You'll have all kinds of different kinds of nymphs of the different aquatic flying insects that will grow in rocks or gnaw on wood and then emerge and hatch. So as long as you have the substrate where those nymphs can live, then you're going to have hatches. So you're going to have all kinds of hatches of insects. So be thinking about that as well when you're fishing. I presume that's what the question is about. But yeah, you're going to have some. So more tools. Let's talk about more tools of the trade. A Secchi disc is a must-have. If you're going to be a pond management guy, person, woman, human at all, you really need a Secchi disc. Now that's about an 8 to 12 inch disc that's got an X in it. Opposing quadrants are black. The other opposing quadrants are white with an eye bolt in the middle. Put it on a cord or a stick and you drop it down in the water and you're measuring visibility. Visibility depth is a big deal. There's Ken Dowd from York Springs, Pennsylvania. Good to see you, brother. Visibility depth is a big deal. I got a call from a long-time client, Larry Hensley from Odessa, Texas. Got a lake in Brownwood. He calls me probably once or twice a month. Hey, Reed, Gaston, good to see you. So he called me and he'd fertilized his lake. He'd fertilized it again. Didn't get a bloom. I had him fertilize it a third time at 1/3 the dose of the first dose. Okay, that was complicated. I had him do a full dose. Didn't get a bloom. Had him do a half dose 2 weeks later. Still didn't get a bloom. So I had him go fertilize it one more time at 1/3 the dose. He called me yesterday and he had visibility of 15 inches. So I said, okay, tell me how you know that. How do you know it's 15 inches? He says, well, Bob, I got a Secchi disc and I measured it. Knocked me over with a feather. If you actually can check your visibility and quantify it, then you can make really good decisions on what to do. Now, if he just said, well, Bob, I've got visibility of a foot, I'd say, did you measure it with a Secchi disc? He'd say, no. Well, how do you know? I'm just guessing. Well, if you're guessing, it could be 3 feet, but if you've got if your visibility depth is 1 foot, then I'm going to ask you to describe the color to me. So he says, I measured it. It's 15 inches and the color is army olive drab green. I wanted to give him a hug. I said, dude, that is perfect. You measured it with a Secchi disc. You gave me a great description. So what that means is that your fertilizer is doing its job. You're shading the sun off the plants that were 8 weeks ago growing in 10 feet of water. So now they're going to die. They're going to contribute their nutrients back to the water column, and you're going to grow some more fish. So way to go. Good job. And he said, yeah, but. Hell, there's always a yeah, but. Well, the yeah, but here was, I can't catch my fish. Well, change baits. You went from 8 to 10 feet of visibility to less than 2 feet of visibility. They just can't see your bait. Throw something that makes noise, and you'll catch your fish. So he's going to go do that. But a Secchi disc is a great tool. Another must-have tool is a thermometer. Go to Boat Cycle Manufacturing or, forestry suppliers. Somewhere you can buy a thermometer. I don't care if it's a mercury thermometer that you can tie onto a cord and drop it down. Measure your temperature in increments of about 3 feet. Surface, 3 feet down, 6 feet down, 9 feet down, all the way to the bottom, and record that. And I guarantee you, if you will track your temperatures, then you will be able to compare what's going on in your body of water to the temperature of the water at that point. And that's going to be everything from how well the fish bite, to the kinds of plants that are growing, to the fertility levels, to when the spawns are happening. All that goes on. It's about temperature. So if you'll track temperature, you're going to make a big difference. Hey, Richard Barrett. I see Richard Barrett just checked in. I was just telling everybody we're going to be hanging out at your house on the 14th. We're going to do some hands-on stuff. So we're all excited about that. Looking forward to it. John and I are kind of working together. We're going to see if we can figure out a good game plan for that day. Let me see here. I see some questions coming up. I'm backing up here so I can see this. Billy Bates is late check-in from Maryland. Got baseball going on. Hey, man, I get that. No worries. All right, let's look here. John Elmer. Bob, I'm getting a brown bubbly skim around my dock and feeder. Running my Texas Hunter with MVP twice a day, and the fish are eating all of it. Is that probably just protein and gas, etc.? It doesn't look like algae. Will it hurt anything? You know, I've noticed a number of ponds this year that have kind of a bubbly looking, matter of fact, my son's pond just up the road here, we're hanging out with him for the next couple of days. He's got a little film across his, and I think some of that is actually cottonwood litter. There's some pollen, but I also think he's got some blue-green algae and a little bit of just microscopic plankton that's dying off and floating. The bubbly skim, I think, no, it also could be paraphytin, which is microscopic. It's microbes, beneficial microbes that are helping break down organic matter from your water. So I don't think anything about that's bad. So is it bad? No, it's not gonna hurt anything. No, it's not. James Keister, Dion Myers. Let's see, Mike McPherson says here, on a 1-year-old pond, how long will it take for the pond to reach its peak and remain stable? Structure, rock piles, pea gravel for bluegill, different depth levels, and aeration in place. Mike, a 1-year-old pond, it's going to take it about 3 to 4 years to start to reach its peak. And then it will peak out after about 7 or 8 years. And if you have a good harvest plan and you implement that, if you need to supplementally stock a few fish every 3 or 4 years, you can stretch that out to up to 10 to 15 years. But most ponds, if they aren't harvested properly, are going to last about, they'll start to be really good after 3 years. They'll peak after 5, 6, 7. They'll begin to decline and deteriorate after about 7 or 8 years. Now, here's why. When you first stock a pond, you've stocked it properly, you got the right numbers of fish, they got the right food chain, the game fish are growing like hotcakes. They're going to, in the 3rd year, those predator fish are going to begin to reproduce. When they start reproducing, then their babies start to come on board, you've lost control of your numbers. So these young bait fish are coming in, and just like when you go get married and start having kids, and you got teenagers, they're going to the refrigerator and they're going to raid the refrigerator. That's what happens in a pond. So these young of the year fish after year 3 are raiding the refrigerator. They're wiping out the buffet line. They're just eradicating bait fish. And what happens after about year 3, you know, your bait fish got to be here. Here's your predator fish. So your bait fish got here, your predator fish, and now after year 3, they've caught up. So the predator fish now are going to begin to decimate your bait fish. Your bait fish are going to decline. When that happens, then your predator fish are going to decline. So if you'll harvest some of these predator fish as you go, then the bait fish can be ebbing and flowing like so. So that little analogy tells you this, that you're trying to manage a predator-prey relationship of your fish. And Richard Barrett, this applies to you too. Now, I know you're in your 2nd year after renovating a pond or your lake, and we'll talk about that here in a couple of weeks. We'll get you guys to catch a few fish and we'll look at them. You know, now sometimes your initially stocked predator fish grow so fast they spawn in the 2nd year. And if they do, then your harvest plan is going to have to go forward a little bit faster than 3 years. But a typical pond, you're going to be harvesting fish after 3 years. So now, how long will it take it to reach its peak? Mike McPherson, and remain stable. Stable is, there's no such a word. Well, there's a word. It has a meaning. Doesn't happen. Stability is based on your harvest plan. Here's the 5 things. Now, you guys that watch this show all the time, you know these better than I do. Happy water, great habitat, food chain. It takes 10 pounds of bait fish for a game fish to gain 1 pound. It takes 10 pounds of insects for bait fish to gain 1 pound. It takes 10 pounds of plankton for insects to gain 1 pound. So at each trophic level, it's a 10-to-1 change. So at some point, the food chain is going to be the deciding factor. The fourth thing is genetics. You got to have good genetics if you want to grow big fish. You farmers and ranchers out there, you guys understand totally the significance of genetics. And then the final piece of this puzzle is a harvest plan. Look at your pond like a garden. At some point, you're going to need to harvest something. Might be bluegills, might be bass. Just what's cool is you get to make that decision. You get to choose it. So there you go. There's my answer. Can a certain amount of filamentous algae be beneficial as habitat for fathead minnows or golden shiners? No. Filamentous algae does not offer habitat for fathead minnows or golden shiners. Now, in the absence of everything else, it can act as escape cover, but not really as habitat. All right, let's see what else we got going on. Reed Gaston, there we go. Charlotte, North Carolina, Mike Cook. Here we go. Robert Dyer, if a pond is void of vegetation, can PVC structure provide the same type of growth productivity for the food chain as a vegetated pond if the paraphytin is growing? Absolutely yes. That's a great question, and the answer is yes, it can. Now you got to keep in mind that PVC pipe structures, you're looking at density, you're looking at area of coverage, and not only can it provide paraphytin, which becomes food for fish, it's also escape cover. And plus, PVC pipe, you can fish it and never get hung up. The biggest question I think that needs to be answered is, are you willing to put enough in there to make a difference? That's the question. Jonathan Stoddard, we tied a knot every foot on the paracord tied to our pond thermometer. That way, when we drop it down or pull it up, I'm trying to touch, just count the knots. That tells us how many feet. Attaboy. I love that. That's great. Ryan Triple, Jeremy Holland. By fertilization, do you mean gypsum? No, I don't mean gypsum. Fertilization is adding nutrients to the water column. In ponds that are crystal clear, they're typically limited by the amount of phosphorus that is dissolved in the water. Now, you guys that are in the north or even the Midwest, when you hear me talk about fertilizing a pond, you want to climb through this broadcast and choke me. Because in areas where farmland is the biggest deal, there are more nutrients than what the water can process. So you talk about areas like Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, even Minnesota, even parts of Missouri, western Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas. Those areas there in the Midwest where there's a lot of agriculture going on, one of the biggest problems, even Montana, they've got a big problem with trying to sequester phosphorus from the water. Where in the South, phosphorus is always, almost always the limiting factor to keep a pond from having a bloom. Gypsum is calcium sulfate. Calcium sulfate's job in a pond is to act as, I guess you could call it a flocculant. You can amend water with gypsum to help it settle mud. If you got suspended clay solids in the water, that's what we use gypsum for. But fertilizer is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Gypsum is calcium sulfate. So the answer to that is no. Can I recommend an East Texas bulk gypsum supplier? Well, I wish I could. I don't know any. The bulk gypsum, most of the bulk gypsum comes from southwest of Oklahoma City, from mines, all the way down to an area close to Chillicothe, Texas, that I know of. Now, U.S. Gypsum is a nationwide distributor that supplies gypsum to markets all over the nation. Now, gypsum is the primary ingredient in sheetrock. Now, today's sheetrock manufacturers, it's not all gypsum like it was 35 years ago. You know, so I don't know an East Texas bulk gypsum supplier. There are several in Oklahoma. You know, the deal breaker on gypsum is the gypsum doesn't cost much. It's like, I don't know, $20 a ton. You know, but when you add freight onto it, it gets a little cost prohibitive depending on where you are. Unless you have a dump truck, then you can go get it. Matt Marsden checking in from Signal Mountain, Tennessee. All is well. Click on Matt Marsden's Facebook page. You can see what he does for a living. He manufactures American fish trees. So let's see what Jonathan Stoddard's got going on. So Matt Marsden is in the artificial structure business. He can answer a bunch of these questions you guys are asking me as well. Other than the normal bass, bluegill, red ear, tilapia, are there any other fish that do well in the northeast Texas region? I've always liked the idea of a few unique species of fish in the pond just to mix things up. Well, Jonathan, I'll tell you this, hybrid stripers do well. Threadfin shad do well. I'm not sure if you're asking about game fish or not. And you know, early on in my career, I was not a great big fan of green sunfish, warmouth, you know, creatures like that. I'm going to put this deal over here. The sun's about to go down. But, you know, after 40 plus years, I'm not as resistant to some of those native species. Now, I'm not a big fan of carp and buffalo and gar. I mean, gar, you know, they're getting a pretty big following. I like gar. They're okay. But not in your pond. You know, so hybrid sunfish, hybrid striped bass, northeast Texas, depending on the habitat you've got. If you've got good habitat, you might even stock a few smallmouth bass. I don't know. You know, but if you don't have the right habitat, don't do it. They're not going to thrive. But that's a few unique fish that you could think about. Hybrid stripers, hybrid sunfish, channel cat, if you're ready to deal with their size and the way that they live, and a few other sunfish. Warmouth would be fun. They just won't grow very many. Ryan Triple. Jared Poole. Sup, old fella? Who you calling old, dog? I know, I am. I own it. Do bluegill spawn every 30 days in South Florida? Yeah, that's Scott, that's pretty fair. 30 to 45 days. Sometimes, depending on the temperature, it takes them a little bit longer to develop their eggs. But yeah, they'll spawn every 30 to 45 days. Let's see what Robert Hudson's got going on here. If I can get this thing to work. Bob had about 30 to 40 large blue something. I'm going to presume bluegills. Died about 3 weeks ago. No other size or species of fish. I immediately began aeration with a surface boiler, an ice heater. What do you think is the culprit? I'm in middle Georgia, 2-acre pond. It hurt my feelings. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because I totally get that. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a phone call from guys whose fish died, or some of their fish died, and their feelings were deeply hurt. So I'm going to raise a toast of unsweet tea. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think the culprit is. Actually, in the July-August issue of Pond Boss Magazine, I've got 3 articles that address this topic. Now, Chuck Brinkman comes on the show almost every Wednesday. I haven't seen him tonight. But I wrote a story about what happened to him. What happened to him very likely happened to you, Robert Hudson. So when this story comes out, you need to read it. You know, I wrote 3 stories on different angles of water quality, fish dying, water stratification, water chemistry compared to biology. So this next issue of Pond Boss, if you aren't subscribing, I'm going to do the commercial right now. Hey, Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. You guys know the drill. $35 a year. Listen to me. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. 365 days. That date and what you ate is gone the next day. Matter of fact, the date's gone that night. The rest of the date's gone the next day. $35 a year for Pond Boss Magazine. I took Debbie out to eat. Oh my gosh. we're renovating. We bought a home in Granbury in Pecan Plantation. So now we're going to remodel just the kitchen. That's all. Going to paint the house, change the trim and whatever it is around the ceiling. Molding, I don't know what you call it. Yeah, molding. Somebody's going to correct me. I get it. And change the trim. We got Chuck the carpenter, got my sawmill. He's cutting cedar for us right this minute. I just talked to him 30 minutes ago. And he's making 1x6s to use as trim. So, anyway, we're remodeling that house, getting all things ready. And now I forgot what. I know what it was. Debbie wanted to go look at some furniture, so we went to Brumbaugh's west of Fort Worth. Looked at some there. Then she loves Pottery Barn, so we went to Pottery Barn so she could build a couch. I didn't know you could do that. I guess in today's world, in the post-COVID era, you have to build a couch because they don't have it on the floor because they can't get it. So now this is crazy to me. Great business model if you can do this is write a big check so they can go create what you want and get it to you in 6 months. So they're going to use your money for 6 months while they have the manufacturer create something that you're not going to get for 6 months. Well, afterwards, Debbie was hungry for seafood, and I'd kind of thought she might be interested in that. So I started scoping things out there in Fort Worth, Texas, right around TCU, and I found this little restaurant called Pacific Table. And it looked pretty cool, so we drove over, went into it. Great, charming little restaurant. Waitress was fantastic. She said, "Oh my gosh, I love your earrings." And Debbie said, "You like these earrings?" And the waitress said, I love those earrings." Debbie took them out of her ears and gave them to her. I've never seen her do that. Well, we got pretty good service, but Debbie asked what was any specials. Well, they had sea bass, Chilean sea bass. Debbie said, "God, that sounds good." Well, old Pond Boss, he wasn't very smart that night. He didn't say, "How much is the sea bass?" You know, everything else is like $18 to $22, and we were going to split it. We did an appetizer. She got a glass of wine. I had a little cocktail, and so we were just going to split the entree. $54 for sea bass. We could have gotten two for that meal that night. We could have gotten 2 subscriptions to Pond Boss. So, hey, thank you to Texas Hunter Products for sponsoring this show. Thanks to Pond Boss for sponsoring this show. And thank you to Purina Mills, Aquamax line of products. I appreciate you guys sponsoring this show. Easy Docks of Texas, David Schneiderman. Appreciate you sponsoring this show. And Greg Grimes, Aquatic Environmental in Georgia. So, here we go, 7:09. Robert Hudson, I think your water is the culprit. That's what I think. I'm going to scroll down here. See what we got. Oh, I'm getting behind. We got a lot of people looking here. Okay. Mike McPherson is giving advice. That's good. Let's see here. So, Mark Dyer just started feeding bluegill Aquamax MVP a month ago. Bluegill are roughly 3 to 5 inches. I've not seen her caught any larger than 5 to 6 inches. Not many small ones either. What type of growth might I be able to expect these bluegill to get to 8 to 10 inches? 10 inches is wishful thinking. 8 inches is not. Yep. Yeah, you can expect 8 inches this fall. You can expect 8 inches by late October. I don't think you can expect 10 inches. I think a 10-inch bluegill needs to be around 3 years old if it's fed well, you know, which is still pretty dadgum good, 3 to 4 years. Clark Cole says there's a big gypsum mine just west of Fredericksburg. Did not know that. Good stuff. Chance Taylor, Roy Snellgrove. Let's see, Kirk McGlamory says, I read something about redder sunfish eating zebra mussels. Is that true? And how many would you need to control the problem in a large lake like Lake Travis in Central Texas? I am so glad you asked that question. I think the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department should totally work on red ear sunfish to stock in some of these zebra mussel infested lakes. You know, the world record red ear sunfish was just broken. I think it's somewhere around 6 pounds in Arizona from eating quagga mussels. You know, I think the Parks and Wildlife Department, if they, in Texas especially, if they would play their cards right, I think they could stand to get some great gain, great publicity by stocking red ear sunfish into some of these lakes that have zebra mussels and some that don't have them yet. You know, like Lake Buchanan was just confirmed. Stock them in there. You know, stop worrying about raising so damn many other fish and drill in, work out with some private land or something. Go raise some red ear sunfish and stock them. Let's see what else we got here. I don't want to get too behind. Tom Lang, listen to me. He just heard that preaching. Tom Lang works for Texas Parks and Wildlife. Tom, I ought to call you and give you that idea. Plant the seed. I know you've already got it in your head because you're that kind of a thinker. You guys, Parks and Wildlife needs to be raising some red ear sunfish to go into some of these public lakes. Okay, blue catfish and freshwater drum. Yeah, but you know what? Red ear sunfish, I think red ear sunfish can get them when they're small. You know, there's blue catfish in Lake Buchanan. There's freshwater drum in every lake. But I think the kicker is can you use a fish that can create some impact that also shows well on TV? You know, in a world record sunfish is going to show better than a world record freshwater. I mean, a world record red ear is going to show better than a world record freshwater drum. Crown molding. Thanks, Travis. That's it. Crown molding. We got guys going around the house now with little nail bars pulling off crown molding. Perfectly good crown molding, I might add. Jeff Wallen, Central Illinois, lots of rain is almost controlling my moths and weeds. Is that possible? Yes, it is. Sure is. It totally is possible. Because when it rains and raises the level of a pond, it can influence visibility, it can influence temperature, and it can influence chemistry. Those three things can combine to arrest the growth of different kinds of plants. Lake Travis has trillions. Yep, just like our national deficit. Vito says Crystal said the commercial with we need to video Crystal. She needs to do it. Frank James, my body of water is anoxic below 10 feet, maximum depth 26 feet, roughly 4 acres, has depths greater than 10 feet. Would aeration improve the fishery? Would it also hurt the fishing since fish could spread out and live deep? The answer to that is aeration would, I tell you, yes, it would improve the fishery. Here's why. When you aerate water, it becomes autonomous top to bottom. When it's autonomous, it's got the same levels of oxygen at the top as it does the bottom. Those oxygen levels don't fluctuate. When the oxygen levels don't fluctuate, the carbon dioxide doesn't fluctuate. When those two things hold hands together, then your pH doesn't fluctuate. So when your pH doesn't fluctuate, oxygen doesn't fluctuate, carbon dioxide doesn't fluctuate, everything else is stable as well. So that gives you a stable environment that's not stressful to the fish. Does it change fishing? Yes, because now your fish are going to be hunkered down as far down as they can get in these summer hot months, which means you're going to have to fish the entire water column to get a strike. Whereas if your water were stratified, like God said so, then you're going to be catching the majority of your fish above the thermocline. You're not going to need a deep diving crankbait or fishing jig off the bottom. You know, so, yes, the fish can spread out and live deep. Yes, it does affect fishing. Yep, Travis, you got it. 7 o'clock, Texas Hunter pre-running commercial. That's it. That's the way I play this game, buddy. Have a little clock. Chris Blood, you're welcome. Hey, Chris, I had the granddaughters out. I got some pretty good images. I've got a couple of things today that with Texas Hunter feeders and stuff that I'm going to be sending to you when I get to it. Been busy. Okay, my deckhand You tell me the captain you want quality, you have to pay quality. Yeah, you know what? I get that, Travis. I love David Janderman. I forgot the cost of replacement earrings. That added to that bill $5. Well, because here's the deal. Our daughter-in-law, the mother to 3 of our grandchildren, I think she's a paparazzi dealer. And Debbie came across these earrings she wanted, and they were $5. So, you know what? She made a waitress's day, and the waitress was just ecstatic. And she actually took them. You know, most people would say no. She said yes. She took them. Debbie was happy. It was $5. And then she turned us on to sea bass. Mark Hicks, good to see you. Tom Lang, I hear you loud and clear, Bob. It's kind of hard not to on this little broadcast. I love me some Tom Lang. Look at there, Kelly Duffy. Oh, I love Kelly Duffy. Kelly Duffy's checking. Kelly Duffy is my go-to guru, expert on all things aquatic plants. Now, I'm going to kind of go out on a little bit of a limb here. If you want to know something about aquatic plants, Kelly Duffy is the go-to guy. Now, here's the catch, 22. He's probably not going to answer your emails off as fast as you'd like because that guy is so busy. But if you'll send me the email, I will correspond with Kelly. Kelly knows as much as anybody he knows more than everybody I've met about how to identify plants, what's the best protocol to deal with them, what's the best herbicides. He works for Helena, and for a boy that grew up in Vernon, Texas, out there kind of in not quite the big country, but not far from it, that guy's brilliant. I love me some Kelly Duffy. A hard rain will dislodge the gas bubbles trapped in floating mats of algae, causing it to sink. Yeah, that's totally right. That's a good thing. I missed that. That's a good catch. My copper nose, Greg Russell. Greg Russell's kind of bragging a little bit here, but it's worth it, dude. My copper nose are a year old, 79 inches, Aquamax 500. Totally get that. That's good, man. You ought to be proud of that. Ron Ardoin, South Louisiana, Lake Charles, the new flood capital of America. Kelly Duffy is the man. Okay, it's about 7:18. I'm going to start wrapping it up. I was talking more about tools. All y'all, every one of you need a Secchi disc. You need a thermometer. You need to collect data. You need to track lengths and weights of your fish. The more tools you have, the more tools you use, the less guesswork you're going to have on how to take better care of your pond. Water quality analysis. I think that's a good idea to at least have a baseline. So if you look at all these different things that I try to teach and we talk about that you can get off pondboss.com, then the better steward you can be of your land and water, which is a big deal to me. Part of the reason I do these Wednesday shows is I want you guys to learn as much as you can of things you can actually use to be better stewards of your land and water. When you go buy that land, you used money that you earned. You earned that money to go out and buy that piece of property. Part of your job is to take care of it. Part of my job is to teach you what you don't know. You hear me talk about the dumb tax, which leads me to the next commercial. The Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology. You can find that at pondboss.teachable.com. I've got 6 different modules, educational modules out there for you. They range in price from $79 to $279 or something, I don't know. Or you can buy all of them for $425. That's premium content. Here's my promise to you. You watch those videos, you will pay less dumb tax. Now, the dumb tax, it's when you go buy a piece of land and you don't know what you don't know. So you hire people to do things for you. They go do it. Then you turn around. I cannot tell you how many times I will go to somebody's ranch. They've owned it for 4 or 5 years. We're going to have a glass of wine or a cocktail or, a glass of tea. Sit by the campfire and we're going to talk. And the first thing they say every time is, I love this place. I'm really proud of it. I wish I'd have done this just a little bit different. These videos with the Institute of Higher Pondology are designed to keep you from having to say that. I would much, much, much rather you say, hey, you know what? I've had this place for 5 years, and I am so glad we did this way. And I think part of my mission, part of my calling, part of the reason I'm here is to help guide you to be better stewards, help you not pay so much dumb tax, and help you figure out how to work your way through stewardship around land and water. So that's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. I know it's 7:21, but I'm going to kind of wrap it up. But I see Travis talking about Mamu, Ryan Triple, Madeline Kahn's got T-Boys, Boudin, Exit I-10, yep, Nirvana, yep. Scott Exit, I've been there, got it. So, hey guys, I really appreciate you guys. And if you got questions, go ahead and send me an email. I'll answer that for you. And I'll help the best I can. Margaret Dyer says, are there relative weight charts for fish beyond bass like bluegill, crappie, catfish to also aid in the judging of the health of a pond lake? Yes, there are. Everything from northern pike to walleye to muskies to bluegill to red ear to crappie. There are relative weight charts. All you got to do is Google them. You can find those. Now, what you can't find typically is some kind of a spreadsheet that you can use. Now, I've got one for bass. If you want it, just email me and let me know. Last week, I did offer a 10% discount on the Institute of Higher Pondology. We had 2 guys take us up on that. So if you're interested in that, if you want to do the Institute, I will offer up that 10% discount one more time. Just send an email to info@pondboss.com. Say, hey, Bob, I want to do the Institute, and I'd like the discount. And Leanne will create a coupon for you that you can put in there, and it will give you 10% off. So, hey, listen, thanks for hanging out with me. Hey, mark your calendars for July 14th at the Barrett Ranch. Richard Barrett was on tonight. His son, John. We're going to do some hands-on display stuff. I'm going to have people carrying the phone around, so I'm not having to do this. And we're going to do things like visibility depth, apply. We're going to talk about aquatic plants. We're going to talk about fertility. We're going to look at visibility. We're going to look at temperature things. We're going to look at fish. John assures me he can catch a few fish. No pressure. No pressure, Richard. No pressure, John. You guys are going to catch a few fish. We're going to examine them right here live on the 14th. So put that in your tickler file. Be sure and save the date, July 14th. So until then, I will see you guys next Wednesday. Not sure where I'll be. Let's see. Yeah, I'll be around Granbury somewhere next Wednesday. And then we'll do this all again. Bring your questions. Appreciate you guys watching. Until next week, adios.